It was raining again, that steady, unrelenting Seattle drizzle that makes the whole city feel like it's sighing. Monday had started out like any other until a water main burst outside our building around mid-morning. They sent everyone home. Most of my coworkers grumbled about the disruption, but I saw an opportunity. I figured I'd surprise Lily. Maybe pick up lunch from that Thai place she likes. Something warm for a gray day. When I walked into our house, everything was quiet except for the soft patter of rain against the windows. The kitchen light was on. I almost called out to her, but something stopped me. 2 mugs sat on the counter, still half full. One of them had a bold red lipstick stain curling around the rim. Not Lily's shade, I'd know. The other had a faint but unmistakable scent clinging to it. Musky. Masculine. Not mine. I stood there, staring at the mugs, long enough for the warmth of the house to start feeling hostile. In the bathroom, I found a white t-shirt slung over the towel rack. Still damp. Too big to be Lily's, too small to be mine. I touched the fabric as if that might somehow explain why it was there. The silence around me thickened. Lily got home a few minutes later, her umbrella dripping on the porch. I tried to play it cool, offered a smile, told her I got sent home early. She blinked once, just once, and said, "Oh, right? You didn't see the shirt, did you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She told me it belonged to a courier who slipped on the steps and soaked his uniform. She said she gave him one of my old shirts, except it wasn't one of mine. I nodded like I believed her. But something in me tightened. Not just because of the shirt or the mugs or the way she kept talking a little too much. It was the way she had the story ready, like it had been practiced. And that's when I felt it, the first crack. A quiet fracture deep in the center of everything I thought I understood. After that rainy Monday, something changed in me. I didn't say anything outright, not at first. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband who made drama out of coincidences. But that scent on the coffee mug? The lipstick? The stranger's t-shirt? They stuck to my mind like burrs. And the worst part wasn't that I didn't believe her, it was that I realized I hadn't believed her in a long time. I just didn't admit it to myself until that moment. The days that followed were filled with quiet watching. I started noticing the small things I had been brushing off for months. Patterns. Details. Little inconsistencies that once seemed harmless, even quirky. But when I started looking at them through a different lens, they took on a whole new shape. Like her sudden obsession with evening work meetings. Lily worked in marketing for a mid-sized startup. Not the kind of place known for demanding after-hours commitment. But now she had 1 or 2 of those meetings every week. She always left in a rush, never late, never early, and always dressed a little too sharp for a team sync. At first, I chalked it up to ambition. Maybe she wanted a promotion. But the way she applied perfume right before leaving, the same one she used to wear on our anniversary dinners, made my stomach twist. She'd stand in front of the mirror, spritzing her neck, smoothing down her blouse, humming quietly like she was getting ready for someone she wanted to impress. Not for PowerPoint slides. Then there was the gym. Or rather, the concept of Lily going to one. She used to joke that yoga mats were just expensive nap pads. Suddenly she had a gym bag. New leggings. A pair of high-end sneakers she claimed she bought on sale. I tried to joke about joining her. She shut it down fast. "You hate gyms," she said. "Besides, it's just a thing I'm doing for me. Just a thing. Just for her." She said it like it was self-care. And maybe it was. But I noticed she never brought back a single brochure, keychain, or email invite. No photos with other members. No app notifications. She didn't even talk about the workouts themselves. Just fake statements like, "It's nice to clear my head." And the lingerie. God, the lingerie. Lily was never overly concerned with that stuff. She preferred comfort, cotton bralettes, oversized tees, maybe silk pajamas if we had a date night in. But lately, I found tags in the trash from brands I'd never seen before. One day, I saw a receipt folded up in her coat pocket. Lace bodysuit, read. $98. That bodysuit never made an appearance around me. I didn't say anything. I just stood there in our bedroom, holding that receipt, and felt something cave in my chest. Her phone, too, that was new. She never used to guard it like treasure. We both knew each other's passcodes. No big deal. But now it was either glued to her hand or hidden under her pillow when she showered. Once I walked into the bedroom while she was texting and she turned the screen face down without even thinking. Little gestures like that build up. They don't scream betrayal on their own. They whisper. They leave a trail. I told myself I was overthinking. That I was imagining things. That I was projecting insecurities onto my wife, the woman I'd loved since college. The woman who once laughed so hard at a dumb joke I made that she spilled wine all over her dress and didn't even care. But when you feel yourself fading in someone's life, it's not your imagination. It's instinct. It's grief without a funeral. I tried to get closer to her, to fight for what we had. I brought up taking a weekend trip, just the two of us. A cabin in Leavenworth, maybe. Cozy, scenic, a break from the routines. Her face tightened. I'm just swamped right now, she said. Maybe next month. I offered to cook dinner together on a Friday. She said she had yoga. I offered to drive her there. She said it was out of the way. Every effort I made was met with a soft deflection. A gentle excuse. Then one night, around midnight, I woke up and realized Lily wasn't in bed. I checked the bathroom, empty. The living room, dark. I walked to her office. The door was closed, the light on. I knocked. No answer. When I opened it, she looked up, startled. Her laptop screen went black a second too late. Sorry, she said. Didn't mean to wake you. What are you working on? Just a presentation. Go back to bed, babe. She never called me babe. I walked away that night with a knot in my throat. I didn't ask questions. I just stood in the hallway after the door shut again and stared at it like it was the final puzzle piece I didn't want to touch. I started staying later at work, not because I had to, but because the house felt too quiet. I began talking more to people I barely knew, baristas, coworkers, even my dentist, just to feel seen. Just to feel like someone was listening. One afternoon, I picked Lily up from her gym because my car was in the shop and hers was being detailed. She had no choice but to let me come. When I pulled into the address she gave me, it wasn't a gym. It was a strip of waterfront shops. One was a boutique candle store. Another sold macrame plant hangers. No sign of yoga mats. No treadmills. No trainers. I sat there in the car, watching as she walked out with a smoothie in hand and a small shopping bag. She looked like she'd just stepped out of a catalog, a hair freshly done, lipstick just right, not a drop of sweat on her. I said nothing. I smiled. She smiled back. But that smile of hers, it didn't reach her eyes anymore. I don't know when it happened exactly. When we stopped being real and started playing roles. Maybe she'd been rehearsing her part longer than I knew. Maybe I had to. But that week, I began keeping a notebook. I didn't write accusations. Just observations. Dates. Places. Things she said. Things that didn't add up. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. Because deep down, I knew I was standing on a fault line. And something was going to give. The truth doesn't hit you like a truck. That's a lie people tell to make betrayal sound cinematic. The truth is quieter, slower. It creeps in, drip by drip, until one day you're drowning in it. Lily told me she'd be gone for the weekend. Emotional retreat, she said. Just me and a few girls from the gym. You remember Dana, right? I nodded. I remembered Dana. She was the one who supposedly hated group events and never posted on social media. The perfect imaginary friend. I said, take all the time you need, and kissed her on the cheek like everything was fine. I even offered to pack her favorite herbal tea. She smiled, eyes warm. If I didn't know what I knew, I might have believed her. But that morning, after her car disappeared down the driveway, I went upstairs and opened the drawer in my office where I'd hidden a small black box the size of a key fob. Inside it was the tracker. I'd installed it in the lining of her purse the week before, right after the candle store incident. It felt sickening at the time, like I'd crossed some moral threshold. But now, as I stared at the real-time location blinking on my phone, I didn't feel guilt. I felt focus. She wasn't headed east, toward the mountains where retreats usually were. She was going west, toward the lake. I waited 2 hours before following. I took the long way, careful not to get too close, switching my phone to airplane mode to avoid accidental pings or messages. By early afternoon, she was still pinned at the same spot, a lakeside cottage about 90 minutes out of town. Not a retreat center. Not even a rental property listed on any site I could find. It was privately owned. I parked a block away and walked the last stretch. My heart was thudding in my ears, but everything else about me felt quiet, too quiet. Like my body was on autopilot. From behind a clump of trees, I could see the cottage. 2 chairs on the dock. A hammock hanging loose between 2 trees. A pair of sneakers and a wine bottle on the porch steps. And then I saw them. Lily. And someone else. They were sitting on the dock, close. Her feet were in the water and her head rested on his shoulder like it belonged there. He kissed her temple. She laughed, that soft, unguarded laugh I hadn't heard in months. I felt a heat rise in my chest, but it wasn't rage. It was resignation. That was the sound of someone who had already left me, even if she was still wearing my ring. I backed away before they saw me and returned to the car. I didn't follow her again that weekend. I didn't need to. I had all the proof I was looking for. But it turns out I hadn't seen the worst of it, not yet. Back at home, I remembered her tablet. Months ago, I helped her set it up so everything synced with her phone. She used it mainly for reading and Pinterest recipes. But when I turned it on and opened the photo gallery, a new folder caught my eye: April picnic. It wasn't locked. It wasn't hidden. It was just there, sitting in plain sight like a ticking bomb with the safety pin pulled. Inside were 47 photos. In the first one, Lily sat on a picnic blanket laughing at something outside the frame. Her sunglasses were pushed into her hair and her shirt was unbuttoned just enough to be flirtatious. Behind her, the lake sparkled. The second photo made my breath hitch. She was straddling him, a man with dark hair, tan skin, and a lazy smile. He looked younger than me, or maybe just less tired. Her arms were around his neck. His hands were resting on her waist like they'd been there 100 times before. Another photo showed them lying on the dock, tangled in a blanket, staring at each other like the rest of the world didn't exist. The last one was in a bedroom, same man, same smile, Lily curled into his chest beneath a white comforter. She looked peaceful, like she had finally found the place she'd been searching for. There was a caption under that photo. It read, "You are the silence in which I come alive." I stared at those words for a long time. Longer than I should have. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, holding the tablet like it was made of glass, wondering when exactly I became the noise she was trying to escape. I scrolled back, hoping to find something else. A clue. A contradiction. Anything. But the rest of the photos were consistent. An asterisk mate. Rehearsed. Like a relationship that wasn't a fling but a second life. A better one in her eyes. Her messages were there, too, dozens of them. Some mundane. Don't forget sunscreen. The key's still under the planter. Did you sleep okay, babe? Others stung worse. You make me feel seen. I wish I'd met you first. I hate pretending when I'm home. I didn't know this man's name, not yet. But he had already taken everything I once thought was mine, not by force, but by invitation. And Lily, she wasn't being manipulated. She wasn't confused. She was in love. Or at least something close enough to it that she felt the need to document it with photos and poetry and weekend escapes. She wasn't hiding an affair. She was maintaining one. I closed the tablet and placed it face down on the table. Then I stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared out the window like I might see her car pull up and explain everything away with a smile and a lie. But she didn't come home until Sunday night. She walked in like nothing had happened, kicked off her shoes, asked if I wanted tea, said the retreat was refreshing and that she felt rebalanced. I nodded. I didn't mention the lake, or the man, or the dock, or the photos. I just listened to her speak, this woman who once used to feel like home and now sounded like a stranger reading lines from a script. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. And in that moment I felt nothing but the weight of performance. Later that night, I lay in bed beside her while she scrolled through her phone. I stared at the ceiling, at the cracks in the paint, at the ceiling fan spinning like it was trying to outrun the truth. In the dark, she whispered, "Thanks for being patient with me." I didn't answer, because I wasn't being patient. I was done. After that weekend, I stopped asking questions. The silence between us had evolved into a language of its own, heavy, pointed, and full of unspoken indictments. I didn't bring up the lake house. I didn't mention the photos or the caption or the man whose arms she melted into like I was never there. I didn't need to. She had already shown me who she was. And Lily, to her credit, didn't miss a beat. By Monday, she was back in character. She walked into the kitchen in a sundress I hadn't seen before, the kind you wear when you want someone to look twice. She brewed coffee, kissed me on the cheek, and asked if I'd mind picking up almond milk on my way home from work. Her voice was breezy, warm, like someone who hadn't just spent the weekend wrapped up in another life. The performance had big asterisk N, and I, somehow, was still cast in the role of husband. Except now I saw the rehearsals, the smiles that ended half an inch before her eyes, the touches that lingered just long enough to be noticed but never long enough to mean anything, the stories that had the right beats, work deadlines, Dana's drama, spin class, but lacked the color they used to carry. She cooked dinner more often now, set the table with cloth napkins. She asked about my day, not too much, not too little, just enough to make the scene believable. I answered her like a man reading cue cards. There wasn't malice between us, just an agreement to pretend. Once, I found a concert ticket stub in her purse, folded in half, still faintly warm from being touched so often. The band was one I had introduced her to years ago. We saw them live once in Portland. It had been pouring rain, and we danced barefoot in the mud. I remember thinking that night, this is what forever looks like. The ticket was from a show that happened 2 weeks ago. She never mentioned going. I never asked. Another day, I spotted a necklace, small, silver, shaped like a crescent moon, hanging from her rearview mirror. I hadn't seen it before. It was too delicate to be something she bought herself, too sentimental to be random. She didn't notice me looking at it as she drove. I made a note of it in my head. Another line in the script she hadn't realized was visible. Everything felt curated, measured, calculated. She'd wake up earlier than me, shower, and leave her perfume hanging in the air like an echo. Her phone never left her side. She angled it away from me on the couch, even when she was just scrolling through recipes or memes. She used to toss it anywhere, on the bed, the bathroom counter, the passenger seat, like it didn't matter. But now it was sacred, guarded, always face down. Sometimes, I'd watch her from the hallway as she FaceTimed with someone. Her voice low, her laugh featherlight. She'd tilt the camera just slightly, the way you do when you want to be seen at your best angle. When I walked in, the screen would go black. Just Dana, she'd say with a grin. Always Dana. Always fiction. We became roommates who kissed each other on the forehead and texted about toilet paper. The kind of couple people see at dinner parties and think, they seem solid, because Lily was good at this. She knew how to smile in a way that made people think they were the only ones who mattered. She knew how to tell stories that made her life sound like a well-balanced blend of romance and ambition. I started calling it The Lily Show, starring her curated routines, my complicit silence, and a romance written for the benefit of the world, not for us. We went to a friend's birthday dinner one Friday. I remember watching her across the table as she laughed at someone's joke, her hand lightly resting on my arm like we were still something whole. She looked radiant, magnetic. Even I couldn't deny it. When someone asked how we were doing, she answered before I could. Great, she said, flashing a perfect smile. Just got back from a little couple's retreat. She was talking about the lake house. I nodded, playing my part. A few people smiled, offered comments about how cute we were, how goals we seemed. One woman leaned in and said, "You two still look at each other like it's the first date." I almost laughed, but instead, I reached for Lily's hand and held it, because that's what the script called for. Later that night, as we undressed for bed, she stepped out of her jeans and sighed like someone who had just delivered a Tony-worthy performance. "We should go hiking this weekend," she said. "Just us. Phones off. Detox a little." I watched her cross the room and hang her earrings with precise care. "Sure," I said, but I didn't block off the calendar. I didn't clear my schedule, because I knew she wouldn't bring it up again. And she didn't. 3 days later, she forgot. She had a friend's birthday brunch. When I reminded her, she blinked like she had just remembered it. "Oh, right. Yeah. Can you believe how packed this month's been?" Her excuses were like leaves in the wind. Soft, fluttering, easy to let fall. I started keeping track of her tells. The way her voice dipped when she lied. The slight twitch at the corner of her mouth when she deflected. The fact that she never made real eye contact anymore. It was like watching someone act out the version of herself she thought I wanted. One night, I found her asleep on the couch. Her phone had slipped from her hand. I picked it up, meaning only to set it on the table. But it was unlocked, and the screen was open to a music app. A playlist titled His Eyes. The songs were moody, romantic, the kind you send someone when you want to say, "This is how I feel," but can't say out loud. I didn't recognize any of them. They weren't ours. They weren't mine. I listened to a few seconds of the first track. Then I stopped. I didn't need to know more. I placed the phone on the armrest, turned off the lamp, and went to bed. The next morning, she brought me coffee with a kiss on the temple. I thanked her. She smiled like the world was still intact. But the truth was, we were playing house inside a sandcastle that had already washed away. The structure remained, but the foundation was gone. She still asked me how I slept, still kissed me goodbye, still wore her ring. But none of it meant what it used to. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of playing backup in a story that no longer included me. But even so, I played along. Because I needed time. Because I was planning my exit. Because I wanted to leave the stage on my terms, not hers. And that meant pretending a little while longer. Pretending I believed her stories. Pretending I still recognized the woman in front of me. Pretending I didn't already know how the next act would end. The first thing I did was open a new bank account. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't out of spite. It was survival, the kind you don't talk about over drinks with friends. I waited until lunch on a Wednesday. Drove to a branch 2 neighborhoods over. Sat in front of a woman named Yvette who asked if I'd like to open a joint account or an individual one. Just me, I said. She smiled, didn't ask questions. I deposited a modest amount. Not enough to draw suspicion if Lily ever checked our shared statements, but enough to make me feel like I had oxygen in a room that was slowly closing in. Over the next week, I started pulling back. Not obviously, not enough to raise flags, but in the ways that mattered. I stopped sending her casual texts during the day. No more memes, no more thinking of you messages. I replied to hers with short, polite notes. She didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Either way, the silence between us began to stretch wider. She started talking more, filling the quiet with stories from work, questions about weekend plans, commentary on her latest skincare routine. It all sounded pleasant, normal, curated. I nodded, answered when needed, and let her do the heavy lifting of maintaining the illusion. I began packing a little every night. Not in boxes, not all at once. That would be too loud, too real. Instead, I started with the small things. A backup phone charger. A pair of shoes I never wore. A few books from my nightstand. I tucked them into a storage bin I'd moved to the garage, labeled Christmas lights. It wasn't Christmas. We were in August. But Lily never touched that bin. Each night, I added a little more. A USB drive with copies of our financials, passwords, and scan documents. My passport. A few framed photos of my parents and me, the kind I didn't want to leave behind. I even took the old baseball glove I'd kept since college and stashed it away. The storage unit came next. I rented it under a name variation, Nathaniel, not Nate, just in case. It was a 5x10 space near the edge of the city, tucked behind a strip mall. Unremarkable. Perfect. I started making trips there once a week, always after work, always with a bag in the trunk. A few shirts. A hard drive. The books. It added up quickly. The first time I stood inside it. Bare concrete floor, metal walls, buzzing fluorescent light. I felt something shift. It was ugly, cold, but it was mine. Freedom rarely looks like what you expect. I didn't talk to anyone about what I was doing. Not my coworkers, not my sister, not even Will. My closest friend since college. Everyone still saw Lily and me as the solid couple, the blueprint. We didn't fight in public. We showed up to events on time. We brought hostess gifts. No one suspected that every time I watched her put on lipstick, I was mentally counting down the days until I could leave. We still shared a bed, technically. But the space between us was a canyon. We'd both roll to our respective edges, backs turned, bodies motionless. If she reached out in her sleep, I never noticed. One night she tried, I think. She rolled over, brushed her hand across my shoulder. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Eventually, she shifted back. In the mornings, we still made coffee, still swapped articles, still played house. But it wasn't real. Not anymore. She asked once if I was okay. You've seemed a little quiet lately. I smiled, said work was crazy, that I was just tired. She nodded, accepted it, kissed me on the forehead and went back to her emails. The worst part wasn't the lying. It was how easy it was becoming. I started noticing the house through a different lens, not as our home, but as a collection of items to be divided. The couch? She'd probably keep it. I didn't care. The bar cart was mine. My dad gave it to me after I landed my first real job. The espresso machine? Technically hers, but I bought it. It was strange how quickly your mind becomes transactional when the emotional core dies. One Saturday while Lily was out at another class, I cleaned the hall closet. That's when I found the box. Not the shoebox that came later. This one was just labeled cards. Inside were birthday notes, old love letters, anniversary messages. All from me. Years of ink on paper, evidence of how hard I had once tried. I read a few. I love how your laugh sounds when you're trying not to wake the neighbors. You make coming home feel like a reward, not a routine. I don't believe in soulmates, but you've made me question that. They were all written before the switch flipped. Before her scent changed. Before the gym and the lake and the half-truths. I closed the box, pushed it to the back of the closet. I didn't throw it away. But I didn't take it with me either. Some things are meant to stay behind. A week later, I took a drive to the outskirts of the city. I found a small house listed by a retired couple, nothing fancy, just clean and quiet. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a backyard with a crooked fence. No Lily. No shared memories. No ghosts. I signed the lease on the spot. The keys felt strange in my hand. Cold. Final. I didn't move in right away. I waited. Planned. Counted days. We hosted her sister for dinner that Friday. Lily made shrimp risotto. I opened a bottle of red. We laughed. We smiled. I told stories. Her sister said, "You guys are still so in sync." I love that. I nodded. 2 hours later, I excused myself to take a call, work stuff, and stepped outside to the driveway. I stood there, staring at the house, and felt something loosen in my chest. It wasn't home anymore. It was a set. And I was days away from the final scene. The night before I planned to leave, Lily said she wanted to go hiking again, the same trip she had canceled weeks ago. Just us, she said. No distractions. I told her I had meetings I couldn't move. She smiled. Another time. But there wouldn't be another time. I packed the last of my things into a bag and placed it in the trunk. Left my phone charging on the nightstand. Wrote down a few final passwords and stashed them in my wallet. Then I crawled into bed next to her one last time. She didn't stir. She didn't turn. And I didn't reach for her. We were 2 strangers in the same room, separated by a silence that no longer begged to be filled. And I knew then with absolute clarity that I wasn't running away. I was walking towards something. Even if it was just the sound of my own footsteps.